Hi everyone, I'm Josh Wilkerson, and I'm excited to walk you through my sustainable farm management plan for Wilkerson Family Farm. Our farm sits in southwest Ohio, just outside Dayton. Over the next 10 minutes, I want to share the vision I've put together for turning our property into a working, closed loop, sustainable operation, one where every enterprise feeds the next. The big idea you'll see throughout this presentation is that no single piece of the farm stands alone. We have 8 subsystems and 1 living farm. This project is a whole farm plan for a diversified homestead. The idea isn't just a list of enterprises, it's a single system, where each piece feeds the next. I set 5 goals for the plan. 1. To build soil. 2. To extend our growing season. 3. To diversify income. 4. To restore pollinator habitat. And 5. To connect with the community. The mission statement on the left is a test that I used for every single design decision. If a practice didn't help close the nutrient loop or strengthen the community connection, it didn't make it into this plan. You'll see these 5 goals show up over and over throughout the slides that follow. This is the mind map that I used in the previous discussion board, and it's the heart of our whole plan. Wilkerson Family Farm sits at the center, and there are 8 subsystems branching off: composting, season extension, honeybees, native pollinator habitat, Dexter cattle, poultry, financial sustainability, and community and education. The solid color branches show the subsystems and their specific practices. The dashed lines are the really important ones. These are the nutrient cycles and the ecological feedback loops that tie everything together. As you can see, animal manure feeds the compost will build the soil, pollinators will support the crops, eggs, beef, and honey help feed the community, and then the community keeps the operation financially viable. This is a systems thinking process in practice. Nothing on the farm stands alone. Composting and soil health is the engine of the whole farm. Every other subsystem will ultimately depend on the soil being alive and productive. Here's how the cycle works in practice. Our cattle manure and poultry bedding go into a 3-bin hot composting system, along with crop residues, kitchen scraps, and garden trimmings. Cover crops, things like winter rye, clover, and hairy vetch, get planted in the off-season to add organic matter. They fix nitrogen and protect the bare soil from erosion. By keeping the cycle on the farm, we replace the need for purchased synthetic fertilizers. This will save money, but more importantly, it protects the pollinators and the water quality on our property and downstream. Season extension is what lets a small farm compete where a larger commercial operation can't. With the right infrastructure, a property in Ohio can produce food almost 12 months out of the year. The plan calls for 3 layered tools. Number 1, a heated greenhouse, which anchors winter production. That's where we'll grow cold hardy crops, greens, herbs, and start next year's seedlings. Cold frames and low tunnels are a lower input season extender that lets crops like spinach, kale, carrots push through the shoulder months of the year. And succession planting is where we will stagger plantings every 2 to 3 weeks, and this will keep our harvest rolling and spreads the workload out. Even though we're in southwest Ohio rather than New England, the same principles apply. Our growing season effectively shuts down from November through March without intervention. The greenhouse and cold frames are exactly the bridge that helps us keep contributing greens and roots to the local food access programs through those lean months when other producers are unable to. Our pollinators are not just a decoration on the farm, they are a functional part of our infrastructure. Without them, the greenhouse crops and our fruit trees wouldn't be able to produce. On the honeybee side, I'm establishing an apiary with overwintered nukes to keep the genetics local and resilient. The bees do double duty. They're going to pollinate everything we grow, and they will produce honey that we will sell directly, which then feeds back into our financial sustainability subsystem. For the native pollinators and monarchs, the plan calls for wildflower corridors along field edges, dedicated milkweed plantings to host monarch caterpillars, and a pesticide-free buffer zone all around our farm. As we covered in class, treating wild relatives like the monarch are essential as essential partners rather than nice to haves is closer to an indigenous food system mindset than a conventional one. Our Dexter cattle are an ideal breed for a small operation like ours. They are a heritage Irish breed. They're gentle, hardy, they calf easily, and they're incredibly efficient on grass. There are three things that they will do for us in the system. First, we will rotationally graze them, which means we'll move them through paddocks on a planned schedule to rebuild pastures, break parasite cycles, and suppress weeds without herbicides. Second, the grass-fed beef itself is a premium product with strong direct-to-consumer demand. And third, manure is the fuel for the composting subsystem. The fertility cycle that grows the greenhouse tomatoes literally starts with the cows on pasture. Poultry are some of the hardest working animals on a small farm, and our plan integrates two species, laying hens and ducks, and they each have a specific role beyond just eggs. The hens will follow cattle on rotation, and as we learn, they will scratch apart manure, eat fly larvae and parasite eggs, as well as spread out the manure so it composts faster. The ducks handle other pests such as slugs and snails throughout our garden beds, and they will also, which also helps protect our crops without having to use chemicals. There are two distinct egg products from the chickens and ducks. Obviously, the chicken eggs, which can be used for households and farmer market sales, but then also duck eggs, which have a real premium market with bakers and chefs. This slide gets to the community and education component of our plan. A farm will only work as long as the community is in the loop, and that's the social half of the sustainability, and it's the part a lot of small farms underinvest in. The plan has three pieces here. I'd like to host workshops and on-farm tours bringing neighbors and aspiring farmers to the property to help learn, which would double as a marketing tool. Local food access programs would help put eggs, produce, and shares in the hands of people who don't always have access to fresh food. And then finally, a youth education program through schools and 4-H would help make sure our next generation actually has a hands-on exposure to where our food comes from. I was really struck during class about the medicine wheel, and using this idea of the medicine wheel, specifically reciprocity, really resonated with me. The farm feeds the community, and the community feeds the farm right back through their support and their dollars. So sustainability has to include financial sustainability. Otherwise, the rest of the plan will never get built. The strategy here will be a three-pronged strategy. First, we will have diversified sales. We're not betting on a single product. We'll have beef, eggs, honey, and produce, and we'll go through various different market channels. Second, we're working towards low input cost. By closing the nutrient loop on farm, we can eliminate one of the biggest cost lines and sinks of small operations, which would be purchased fertilizer and feed. And third, we would have value-added products. Some examples could include cured beef, seasonal honey varieties, prepared goods. These would help stretch margins and reduce waste from products that we might not otherwise be able to get rid of or sell. The whole point here is that the cycle keeps turning. Healthy soil will produce good food, and good food will generate revenue, and then revenue will obviously keep the farm going. So in conclusion, if you take nothing else away from my presentation, I hope you remember that there are 5 design principles to our plan. 1, a closed loop nutrient cycle, where manure becomes compost and compost grows crops, crop residue feeds livestock. This means we don't have to keep buying fertility off the farm. 2. Stacked enterprises. Cattle, hen, ducks, bees, and crops are shared among the same land and at the same time, and each one is solving problems that the other can't. Hens will clean up after the cattle, duck protect the garden from slugs, and bees pollinate everything else. 3. There's a functional biodiversity. Pollinator corridors, monarch habitats, and a diverse pasture will help build resilience against pest, disease, and weather extremes. 4. Season extended production. The greenhouse and cold frames bridge a winter gap and smooth out cash flow through lean months. And 5. Community as a system. Workshops, food access, and youth education turn our customers into actual stakeholders on our farm. That's what makes the whole operation resilient over the long haul. This is my plan, Wilkerson Family Farm, built as a system, not as a checklist. The core thesis is no single action or enterprise on the farm stands alone. Every subsystem makes another subsystem work better. That's what sustainable farm management actually looks like in practice. I'd love to hear what jumped out at you, as well as maybe your questions and reactions on the discussion blog. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Thank you.